Okay, we are live. Hi, Kate.
Hi, Kris.
I'm here with Kate Carden again today to talk about more psychic stuff because that's what we do. And honestly, we just had a whole conversation about what our conversations can be about. But the topic we want to get into today, and this is something that um, it's just one of those kind of normal conversations that a lot of us psychics tend to have together, which is just that it's so normal to be psychic. I mean, it's something that people do every single day. You're already doing it. It's already part of your life. It's already part of who you are. And you may not be even aware sometimes or validate how much your abilities are available to you. And when I talk about being psychic, the way that I like to define it and the way that I work with it as a reader and a teacher is that being psychic is being sensitive to energy. It's just having a sensitivity and awareness of energy. And it's human. It's natural. It's built in. Everybody has different ways of doing that. Everyone has different ways of just simply being aware of energy, or things that they notice. And so different ways we talk about it might include intuition, your just like a gut sense, a knowing, seeing something, hearing something, having an awareness on other levels. Just like where you dream it. Maybe I've had a lot of people tell me about their dreams and how their dreams have come true. um, Kate, you want to add to that? Anything in
I'm
particular?
just laughing about that because I actually kind of had a nightmare last night and I was like, oh no, right before this conversation. I hope that one doesn't come true. But there's probably some information in there. Yeah, I think what I would add to that a little bit is I think just as we talk about it is it's really all of what you said, but it's also very focused on you, right? And with that clarity that you you have an intuition and you can kind of trust it, right? Or you have a sense for something and you can really trust it. And I think that's what kind of being an active psychic helps you really be able to trust that. Trust whatever that is, whatever your knowing is.
And that's a great point, the trusting part, because that is something that we see, as teachers, but also as practitioners.
Yeah.
And it's one of the muscles that people build when they start really, some kind of practice or other learning how to work with their abilities is how do I trust the information I'm getting?
Yeah, because I know before I started doing before I started doing this type of, work, I didn't really trust myself that much. I'd have all these different things happening in my brain and I was like, I don't know if I can trust that. And so I think now I have a lot more trust in myself, which is very
Yeah.
feels good.
Because other things, as we know, get in the way, other
Exactly.
kinds of other people's information or, "Oh, no, that doesn't make sense. That's kinda crazy. Why would I even imagine that?" It's that sort of information. Or everybody knows, that expression, "Everybody knows."
Yeah. And it's not that it's perfect now, I still make plenty of mistakes, but it's it's better than it was.
Yeah. I mean, because and we know this too, it can be really hard to get information, clear information, when you really need to get information, like, when you need an outcome, where you're trying to control it, or
Yes.
you need an outcome, or you need to know the answer, you're trying to get,
Trying to
like, "What
control
do
it.
I do now?" And that's when it's maybe least likely to show up.
Yeah. And there's extra energy on it, right?
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
not neutral enough. I mean, that
No.
is another way to when we talk about, getting information as psychics or as intuitives, often when that information comes in, it comes in out of the blue, right? If you're especially intuition, like, where you just know something or you feel it or you meet a person, you're like, "Oh, I know this about this person." I've often joked that, the first time I went on a date with my now husband many years ago, I said to myself, "Oh, I'm gonna marry him. Oh, shit." It was like this, but it wasn't because I was upset about that, it was just like I knew it, and I'm like and I never thought I was gonna marry anybody. But it was this intuition, and then I didn't cling to that, I just had to I'm like, "Well, let's see what happens," you know?
That's funny.
Let's see if
Yeah.
that's real.
Yeah, but that's that neutrality, right? Like, you get a piece of information and you're like, "Oh, okay." Instead of, like, asking if it's real or getting into some sort of spiral about it, right? Or creating drama or something. Yeah.
Yeah. As clairvoyance, I mean, that's the specific kind of, psychic ability that you and I both practice and really work at enhancing and learning more and using. Seeing is something that makes it easier sometimes to be really clear about information, but what's really important about trying to look at energy and see it is you have to bring curiosity
Yeah.
into the whole thing, like, I wonder what will happen here, but also amusement helps.
Yeah.
Kinda like I'm not trying to make this thing look a certain way or that it has to be a certain way or this outcome has to be here. I just wanna see, like, what's the energy on this? What does it look like?
Right. Right. It really lessens the the resistance or it just makes it more neutral. It just makes it easier to see stuff.
Yeah. So what are some different ways that you wanna talk about, that are kinda like daily go-tos, like, kind of fun things that you might think of that people
Yeah.
use their abilities?
I think I think that neutrality is really key, right? I think, it's easy to see how I am a lot more neutral than I used to be, right? Like, things that would upset me don't upset me quite as much. And you can see that kind of in comparison when you see other people, like, getting really upset about things, and it's like, "Oh," it's just the energy of it, right? So you can see it a little bit more clearly. Um, yeah, I think it's just sort of easier to make decisions now than it used to be for me because I can see the energy that's maybe in the way. But I think, there's people who are natural. Everybody has this psychic ability. It's natural, right? And so I think when you're going to make a decision or you're trying to do something and people might not quite know what to do, um, they're almost maybe not necessarily realizing that they are using their psychic abilities, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I want to go into that a little bit, like where you might, without even thinking about it, because psychic abilities or working with your intuition or your knowing or your sense is not overthinking and analyzing
Right.
something. It's the
Right.
opposite of it. And there's nothing wrong with thinking about stuff and making a reasonable decision, but sometimes what might make the decision, whether it's in terms of where you're choosing to go for lunch that day or, another decision you're making that's, like, just a daily decision, there's a feeling,
Right.
you
And
know? There's, like,
that's
I kind of feel like going there, I feel like this, I feel like doing this today, and then you run into somebody,
right.
or something happens that might be kind of interesting or different than what you would have expected.
And that's exactly what I was thinking too, is that feeling. And I think what's really interesting about that is how we go against that feeling, right? So, like, there's the opposite of that feeling. There's the feeling that's bad, like, "Oh, this isn't the right thing for me," but yet you still kind of do it, or, like, you're like, "Well," there's the opposite of that. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And that I think is very interesting too. So that goes back to that, like, trusting and, like, continuing to kind of work that skill where you're like, "Well, am I going to continue to do something that doesn't feel right because of, societal pressure or whatever it is, or
yeah.
am I going to?" And that kinda jumps into that other topic that we were talking about where it's like, am I going to choose the thing that might be more difficult, but that's really what I wanna be doing?
Well, and it's funny too, that societal pressure thing, like, where there's and this is something I see a lot of people do, and I've done it too, and I don't do it the same way anymore at all, but where you'd like I would just be like, "I really feel like doing this, but, everybody else is gonna be, blah, 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 or I won't have any support on my decision
Right.
that I'm making based on this." And then it's kind of funny because we've done that without even being conscious of it or thinking about it. I remember years ago in a class, a teacher saying, "How do you kill intuition?" And
Yeah.
we're all sitting there looking at him, and he's like, "You explain it to somebody." So when people have their gut feeling, their intuition, and then they try to get everybody else around them to go along with it, that's gonna kill your intuition in a heartbeat.
Interesting.
It's
Yeah.
gonna just knock it flat because everyone's gonna have their own different sense. It doesn't mean that your intuition or your sense is incorrect or wrong. It just means that that's you learning how to listen to yourself. And, like,
Yourself.
think of those times when you've, in hindsight, said, "Oh, man, I knew I should have done this, and I didn't do it. I did this other thing." I
That
knew I shouldn't have, like, we talk about it sometimes as the red flags.
Yep.
But red flags can be a specific action that's happening or something that's happening, but there's also a sense. I've given so many readings over the years where somebody is coming out of something and they're like, I knew that wasn't the right thing to go into. And I will say to them, without making them wrong, your body knew.
Yeah.
Your body knows. So you want to talk about that a little, like the feeling on a body level, even if we're not necessarily conscious of it or aware of it, but there is that body level.
Oh.
Any stories you can think
Oh,
of for
it's
that?
just huge. Like, I mean, honestly, like, it's such a big topic. I mean, I still do that, I'm not going to, like, say here and say that I don't do that, but it's so huge because you'll get those red flags or those feelings of, like, "No, I shouldn't be doing this," or should I use the word "should" in quotes, but, um, and it's like it's I don't even know what to say about it because it's so fascinating because you're kinda going against yourself, right? But I think, what you were saying a minute ago is it's really interesting because you're letting all the other energies kinda come in and pile up, and then you're kind of not operating from your own truth, right?
Yeah.
And I always just think of it honestly, I think of it as a muscle because I'm like, "Okay, I know that I'm choosing my truth and sort of my answers and what I want, like, most of the time, and I see it as a progress. I see it as a muscle that I'm practicing. So the more that I do that, the less I am influenced by the other energies?
Yeah.
And
Because it
so
can also be pressure to not listen,
yeah,
like it's about the group. Yeah.
right, right. And so I think it's kind of a work in progress. I think you choose your truth and your knowingness as you can, and then I think it builds it. It's a muscle, so I think it makes it stronger the more you do it.
Yeah. It's also like making use of all the senses you have to be able to get through your day. I mean, I know one thing we had talked about before we got into today's live was, like, how being able to have your abilities just as a normal thing in your life and learning how to listen to yourself makes it easier to, have the vision you have for what you imagine life to be, not like what everyone says it's going to be, or this is how it is, just get used to it. I'm like, no, how does any world change or any country change or any life change? But you have to have a vision. You have to be able to imagine that it's possible to create something. And that is what we need to do more than ever right now.
Right, and what's so important about that is that you're not feeling stuck, right? I think it's so easy to feel stuck in life, whether you feel you're stuck in a job or stuck in whatever it is that you're stuck in, because you're not kind of holding that vision for yourself of how, what it is that you want a little bit better, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great way to put it too. It's a good point. Not feeling stuck. So let's see. Let's leave everybody with a little bit of maybe something simple that you can do today. If maybe you're already doing this, maybe you already make a
Yeah.
point of listening to yourself, but and there's no one right way to do it. I don't think there's any one way that either Kate or I would say this is how you have to do it. Except that the giving yourself space and stillness,
Yeah.
whether you have meditation time, writing time, walking ti like, whatever works for you. And then just start listening to yourself. What's coming up for you? Anything you wanna add to that?
Well, I know this is such a silly example, but I love this example. I love the example of, like, you're thinking about somebody or somebody pops into your brain and then they call you or, like, it's such a simple example, but I think being aware and validating these little sparks that you have, because I think we all have little sparks of intuition, validating them, I think is super important. And I like that as kind of a practice, or just being super aware, like you said, of like, oh, I had a feeling I shouldn't have done this, or I had a feeling I should have done this, and then I didn't. Like, I think even just validating when you don't do it, validate when you do and validate when you don't. It just brings that awareness to all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good, I like it. Cool. Well, we're gonna call, today's life Substack a day. Thank you everybody who's watching live, and thank you if you're watching this video later. Um, we will come back and talk to you again some other time, but thank you so much. Have fun.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Kate.
Thank you.